What's going on, guys? TJ here with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports to give you a breakdown for tonight's 5-game NBA slate tipping off at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Still waiting on quite a bit of injury news, but I just wanted to give a quick synopsis on my takes and plays that I see right now. And where I think the direction will be going in tonight's slate. But before we do that, I do want to touch base on some of our success from last night here at DGF. Let's go ahead and start with Sonic Boom with a 373 score, $25 in a second place finish there for Sonic. We had Mozanga, a second place finish with 373.25, winning $100. We had Deep 3. Deep over there on FanDuel, turning $276 into $518. We had J Money, who was winning a ton of money, $42.50 into $874.60. So a really good night there. Troy, I've been seeing Troy left and right posting his results. He's been absolutely crushing it. $134, maybe $154. I can't quite read that. Into $358. So a good night there for Troy. We had Bill with a small takedown, $75, 348.5 score. And I'm pretty sure him and Hudson, are two guys in a single entry GPP, 1 and 2. Fantastic night there for both of those men. And then JQ, just doing what he does, $800, fifth place finish over there on FanDuel. So a lot of success here. And then Slate Breaker, I didn't even see this. Slate Breaker over on SuperDraft, turning $5 into $70. So a great night there for Slate Breaker over on SuperDraft. Fear Done, $278, a little takedown there in the single entry, third out of 951, and then a fourth out of 64 in the $27 single entry, and a little late night action. So fantastic night there for our DGF community. If you guys want to get involved, you can go to patreon.com/DGFantasy. The link should be below in this video. $20 gets you access to all of our cheat sheets for every sport that we do cover, including MLB, NBA. I know we have MMA today, if that tickles your fancy. We got NASCAR. I know League of Legends is coming to a close, but we got CSGO. So a ton of other stuff there that can get you, or you can get access to $20 a month. So again, link is below. Patreon.com/DGFantasy, and it also gets you access to our Discord that I just showed you, where it's Matt and I, ton of coaches that we have that do a fantastic job helping our members to make sure they're cashing, or putting them in the best situation to make some money. So enough of that nonsense. Let's go ahead and dive into tonight's slate. We do have some injury news, like I said, still pending. Starting with Chicago, we have Satoransky, who is questionable tonight. If he does sit again, there is a couple guys that I do want to touch base on, but he is questionable. We do have Levine obviously out for the next 10 to 4, next 2 weeks with COVID-like symptoms, health and safety protocol. So there is some value there in Chicago. Detroit and Washington. I'm very intrigued with this matchup. Westbrook's a guy I want to keep an eye on throughout the day. Obviously, I'm making this at 11 a.m., so we don't really have too much news yet. But Westbrook off the overtime game there with the Pelicans played 44 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised tonight if we saw a Westbrook DNP, or a rest type situation here where Westbrook doesn't play. So that's something I want to monitor, because if he's out, obviously the value there would be crazy. Bradley Beal at 8,800 would be an absolute lock in cash. So that's something I want to monitor here. And then with Detroit, Diallo's questionable. Obviously, we had Jeremy Grant and Plumlee both sit last night due to rest, so they will be good to go tonight. And then Corey Joseph's the one guy I want to keep an eye on, because if he is out, obviously Killian Hayes becomes a really good play. Detroit's the only team I haven't run numbers on. But, that's something you're going to want to monitor throughout the day. Golden State and the Celtics, we have Oubre, who is potentially going to sit again tonight. He's missed the last 4 games with a wrist injury. So if he sits again, there's some good value there in Golden State. Celtics, same type of situation we saw the other night with Fournier and Rob Williams out. Memphis, somebody I do want to keep an eye on as well in an up-paced matchup here, traveling to Milwaukee on a back-to-back. Brandon Clark actually sat last night. And then Melton and Winslow are both questionable. So if those 4 guys are out, there's definitely some value here in Memphis. I'm looking at guys like Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, 2 guys that benefit the most with those guys off the floor. Milwaukee, Dante DiVincenzo set to miss his 2nd straight game. And then the Spurs and Phoenix, no real news here, obviously. So that's it right now on the injury front. So let's go ahead and take a look at some numbers and see where we're at. So in terms of ownership right now on Fantasy Cruncher, because Roto does not, as you can see, have any ownership, which is okay. It's still very early. They do. fantastic. I don't even need to go to Fantasy Cruncher. Perfect. So if we're looking at ownership right now, a lot of those Detroit guys and Washington guys are popping up, and rightfully so. It is one of the higher over-unders that we do have at a 224. It's right there in the mix with Boston and Golden State at a 227, and then Milwaukee and Memphis currently sitting at, 236, 235? 236, 237. If that game's not going to carry ownership, that's a game I want to target for tournaments for sure. It's a really high over-under. I think it could be a very uptick pace type matchup. So that's where I would be going for tournaments. But in terms of cash, I think the Detroit and Washington space is where a lot of people are going to go to. And starting with Jeremy Grant at 6,500, in this up pace matchup, coming off a game where he sat last night, it's a really good spot for him against Washington. So I can get behind Jeremy Grant for cash currently. Obviously, Bradley Beal at 8,700. Again, Westbrook. I really do think this is a spot where Westbrook could potentially sit. So if he does, Bradley Beal is going to be a lock. We'd have some other guys from Washington that would come into play. Where are you, Nato? Oh, Raul Nato, 3,500. I think he would be a decent play there. He'd be a good cheap option there alongside Bradley Beal. Daniel Gafford's a guy who gave Washington some really good minutes last night against the Pelicans, 26 minutes, really efficient. So I do have my eye on him in tournaments. But outside Beal and Westbrook in this type of situation, if Westbrook plays, that's where I would be going tonight in cash. And then again, the Detroit value is 100% there. I just want to wait and see what's going on with Corey Joseph and what's going on with Diallo. Because if Corey Joseph sits, Killian Hayes is a guy that I am going to want to go to. He's going to be way too cheap and probably starting again like we saw last night against OKC. Played 27 minutes. He split that guard time with Saban Lee. So Killian Hayes is the guy that I would be going to in cash. I also really do like Jeremy Grant. Sadiq Bey at 5,200 is a little too cheap for my... he's a little too cheap of a price tag, so I definitely think you can go there as well. So I'm going to have a lot of interest in this Detroit-Washington game, especially on the Detroit side of the ball, unless we do see that Westbrook does sit tonight. So that's something I do want to keep an eye on. So let's go ahead and keep it moving here. I do want to touch base on a couple other guys. In terms of Cleveland, no one really sticks out for me right now. Kevin Love might be a guy that I would be considering here in tournaments. Targeting bigs against Chicago is something that we've loved to do in the past. Obviously, with the transaction and the acquirement of Vooch, that kind of slows me up a little bit. But I do still like the bigs in this type of matchup. Jared Allen, 7,600. I will like him for tournaments. What am I doing? I'm just clicking on a bunch of stuff. I got Island Fever. It's Saturday morning. But yeah, I do think having some big exposure here for Cleveland is going to be something that I'll be doing in terms of tournaments. But in terms of cash, I don't really have any interest here in Cleveland. With Chicago, though, if we do see Satoransky sit again, I am going to be going back to Kobe White. As you can see, he got the start last night. He played 33 minutes. He was very efficient in his time on the floor. He's still only 5,200, so his price tag came up $200. So yeah, if Satoransky sits, Kobe White's going to be a lock in cash. As you can see, he took 17 shots. He put up 45 DraftKings points. Do I expect him to duplicate that effort? No, but I do think he would play 30, 32 minutes if we do see Satoransky sit. And even if Satoransky plays, I think Kobe White kind of showed himself last night. I think he could be in the mix there for 26, 28 minutes. As you can see, he's projected for 27. So I really wouldn't mind him as a last piece in cash if Satoransky plays. But if Satoransky's out, definitely Kobe White's somebody I'm going to be considering. And then Vooch at 9,800. With or without Satoransky is a fantastic spend up opportunity, or a spend up play here at 9,800. Looked really good last night against Memphis. Looked good against Orlando the game before, obviously his former team. So really good matchup here against Jarrett Allen down low. So I do like Vooch at 9,800. 15.7% ownership does seem a little low to me. I think that's going to come up, but I do like Vooch if you are running cash. Moving on to Golden State and the Celtics. Okay, I don't know why I'm clicking everything. So I ran numbers with Oubre out. So if Oubre's in, this is obviously going to switch a lot of things up. You're seeing Oubre here at 6K, showing 26% ownership. So if he plays, he's definitely in play in cash. But if he sits, Steph Curry's a guy that I'm looking at, because with Oubre off the floor, he gets a 4.1% usage bump. He's a 1.77 fantasy point per minute. I would have him valued for 6.44 value, 66 DraftKings points. That's a little bit of a stretch there against the Celtics, but if Oubre sits, I'll have some interest here in Steph. I think he'll be a really good spend-up spot alongside of Vooch at 9,800. And then I would have interest, honestly, in all these Golden State guys if we do see Oubre out. But if Oubre's in, yeah, at 6K, that's way too cheap of a price tag, especially if he plays his regular starter minutes. So that's something we're going to want to keep an eye on here moving forward. On the Celtics side of the ball, I do have some interest in Tristan Thompson. He played some really, really, really good minutes against the Lakers last game. He played 25. He was very efficient with his time on the floor. So if he does get the start again, I really do like him in cash at 4,500, a little bit too cheap with no Rob Williams and with no Evan Fournier. Obviously, Tyson Teague out of town. Tristan Thompson, 0.93 fantasy points per minute, 5.54 value. We have him for almost 25 DraftKings points. So I do like him as the last piece in cash. Tatum and JB, I'll have some exposure to. I just really think this game between Golden State and Celtics has a chance to be pretty high scoring and competitive at that. So I do have some interest here in the Celtics, but Tristan Thompson would be my favorite play there in terms of cash. Memphis, I don't really have too much interest in cash, but if we do see some of these guys like Brandon Clark sitting again, yes, Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Joe Val, those are guys that I'm 100% going to want to go to, and the highest over-under that we do have on the slate. So this is definitely a game I'm going to be targeting more so in tournaments. But again, if we do get that injury news where Brandon Clark does sit, obviously if we see Melton and Justice Winslow both sit as well, then yeah, targeting Memphis is something I'm going to be on. So that's something I want to monitor throughout the day. And on the Milwaukee side of the ball, with no Dante DiVincenzo, nothing really shakes up too much here in terms of value for the Milwaukee Bucks. But again, I want some exposure to this game. 100%. Like Giannis at 10-6, that's way too cheap as long as he gets his minutes. Last game against Atlanta, he only played 25 minutes. He had missed a bunch of time, and in the fourth quarter, the Bucks were up 20. So Giannis did not play the last... What was it, Giannis? What did you not play? So his stint in the fourth quarter, he didn't play the last almost 7 minutes in the fourth. So something to monitor, but if he's let off the leash here against Memphis, this is a really good matchup for Giannis, so I do love him as a spend-up spot with Vooch and Steph Curry. And then to this last game between the Spurs and Phoenix, again, don't really have too much interest in cash. None of these guys are really going to carry too much ownership, but it is a game that I do want to target for tournaments again because of the ownership. Jay Crowder, 4,600. He's very cheap. He actually shows the best on the sheet here for Phoenix. I have him as a 5.23 value, 24 DraftKings points. So I wouldn't mind him as a last piece in cash. But again, most of these guys are going to be tournament plays for me between the Spurs and Phoenix. But if their ownership is going to stay relatively low on a 5-game slate, this is also a game that I do want to target. So right now, guys, in terms of cash, Detroit and Washington is the game that people are going to go to, especially Jeremy Grant. Killian Hayes, I think those two guys are going to carry a lot of ownership, especially if we do see Diallo sit. And if we don't get any more news there from Detroit, that being Magruder and Dennis Smith Jr., who I do expect to sit. Corey Joseph's the one guy that I am keeping an eye on here because, that directly affects Killian Hayes. But I do think there's a lot of good value here in Detroit. A lot of good value in Washington. Obviously, Tristan Thompson right now is a pretty good cash play at 4,500. The Memphis guys are carrying some ownership in Milwaukee, with Giannis. Brolo, who looks really good, obviously, last game without Dante, went for 37 DraftKings points. So I think a lot of those guys in that game are viable right now. But again, I do want to see some more injury news come out throughout the day before I do make my final picks. Matt and I will hope to go live tonight. Obviously, the slate starts at 8, so if we do go live, we'll probably go live around 6:30, 6:45. So hopefully this video gives you some sort of direction right now. I know we are still waiting on a bunch of things here, guys, but want to take it on, make a video. So yeah, if this helped you out, please hit that like button. Please make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Smash that subscribe button below. And yeah, for all of our future content, you can find us here, our NBA content and our MLB content. You can find us here at our YouTube channel. So again, please make sure you're subscribed. And with all that being said, guys, hopefully we see you tonight for a live stream, and let's cash.